So here's the whole tier list. If you already wanna tell me how wrong I am, go right ahead. That's what tier list videos are all about after all. Just keep in mind that while you only put 8 units in your deck, during deck building you are always fighting all 50 plus units at the same time. It doesn't matter if it's meta right now or not. If you make a deck that is weak to it, sooner or later someone will have it in their deck. Starting with the Recall, which is the strongest core unit by far. Good poke damage, high DPS per square meter with full range and can't be out of position. Well, kinda. Just never recall into enemy units if you don't have overwhelming force. You also do need to stutter step against melee units and gunbots, but as long as you do, you are trading well. And at 200 supply, recalls will just win because of range and DPS per square meter. This also means you never have to tech first, which is a huge advantage. Just remember to never press buttons before your opponent does. Since you have basically zero offensive power, just pair them with something that helps you get to tier 3, preferably on 3 bases. The turrets are a very strong choice for this, as they are OP against anything but anti-big, so all your recalls really have to do is ward off destroyers. Which brings us to the next best core unit, the Blink. Probably the most fun option as the early game isn't boring against anything. Since they are fast and have a get out of jail free card, you can actually cross the map and harass your opponent. Just make sure there is no run by to surprise you, which is why the best place to attack is the choke point between main and natural and not the other path. This offers several benefits, the first being that you naturally have to cross the whole map, so you get vision across the entire map and can spot a run by. The others are about your option to do damage. If your opponent sits on his natural, go to the main. If he sits in the main, go to the natural. If he has slow units, you could potentially even blink past them and kill some natural base workers on your way out. Worst case scenario, you blink away at his army. Just make sure you deal more damage in each engage than you lose HP. In the mid game, even when AoE hits the field, blinks actually stay useful, as you can snipe important tech units even if you have to sacrifice them. So for example, blinking to snipe a destroyer even though all blinks will die to the mortars, so your king crabs can wipe the field with the rest. They are also excellent at delaying pushes, as having blink gives them the highest threat range. The only real downside is that they don't stand much of a chance in a straight up fight against any of the other ranged core units. They pair really well with bombers. Since you have map control early on, you can already be in position to attack the third, and bombers get there faster than your opponent's heavy AoE can. So the bombers can blast away the core units for the blinks to snipe the base and potentially some tech units. Apart from that, anything that prevents your opponent's units from tracing you down is good, as that is your only real weakness. Well, that and straight up fights. The most oppressive unit according to my silver friend, the Wasp. So the Wasp is in a very weird spot right now. On one hand, it becomes basically useless once AoE hits the field. But on the other hand, it may also just be the best unit for the race to tier 3. Let me explain. Wasps are the best early game unit, no question. Just by having Wasps in your deck, you already have map control. No one can push you, not even recalls, as they would have to risk recalling back into you, which would be their end. So you can just 2-base tech in peace. Then, depending on the units unlocked, you may be a threat to their third base, while they most likely are not one to yours. So you get the base advantage as well. And then you just tech straight to tier 3 while you buy time with the Wasps. If your opponent did not tech, losing the third base doesn't even matter, as your tier 3 will just win the game. And if you did not make a third base, but teched, you are probably still ahead, as you had to waste energy on the tech units you needed to kill your third base, which are now useless. So either way, you are ahead. I will pair them with Hornet, Stinger, Shade and Katbus, as there is no ground unit that counters both Katbus and Shade, so your opponent is forced to tech Starforge with you, therefore removing AoE from the game. If they dare to get Foundry Tech and want to defend your air units with either Airship or Dragonfly, you can just dance with Hornets and Shades. Defending will always be harder than attacking, especially when you have faster units. So just get to 4 or 5 bases and squeeze 2 Shades past his defenses, killing all his workers. The only counter to this is AoE plus Flak turret, but that can never move out, so all you need to do is win sudden death. Milady. The Knight. Highest range DPS per square meter. These pair incredibly well with Wasps or even Scorpions as a double tier 1 combo. You start as normal with an expand, but then you send 3 Knights to your opponent's natural and reinforce with Wasps, giving you a very powerful 2-base push. Just make sure you tech in time for the rebound attack. Apart from that, if you run them with Hornets, I mean any AA unit, they are a solid defensive option. More mortar resistant than recalls, which can't push into mortars at all, but not impervious either. At 8 plus mortars, their splash reduction doesn't matter anymore. Do not fear 2 or 3 mortars though, you just need to clear the pass. Which is why these pair incredibly well with bombers. You can use bombers to blow up core units or, and more importantly, the destroyers. Taking any fight in the destroyers is gonna be pain, so you have to avoid that at all costs. Usually that cost is dead bombers. While destroyers are painful, butterflies are hell, as they can't be bombed and sit safely above his army. Also, you will need destroyers of your own, or any tech big unit will just overrun you. Overall, playing Knights, you are most likely looking to win the game before tier 3, as Knights offer very little once tier 3 is out. Their tankiness versus AoE won't matter anymore, and their weakness to anti-big will cost you the game. The fan favorite, the Crab. I'm an avid crab hater, but even I have to admit the superiority over scorpions now. Having bigger claws is really useful as it turns out. Also being fat protects your friends better. Every fight I had against crabs I assumed mortars would shred them like any other core unit, but they are surprisingly resistant to splash damage, while not sharing the big weakness of the knight. This makes them the supreme crustacean. Even though their money to HP ratio is worse than that of the Scorps, the splash resistant Alpha Strike really pushes them over the edge. If they could actually defend workers, I'd put them in A tier. Note that they do not pair well with their king counterpart, as they are too fat for the KC to attack from the second row. Fallen from Grace, the Gunbot. Even though they got a significant DPS increase, the range nerf just hits them way too hard. While you could dance and out-micro before, now every fight is a full commitment. They lack the speed to be active on the map, they lack staying power against AoE, and just kind of lack a purpose right now. I would reverse the last change and give them a skill cap so they can no longer outrange and out-micro recalls or blinks. Just a small 100 to 200 milliseconds delay before they can move after firing. Just enough for the recoils to get the counter poke shot in. This way they can keep their 2-row firing squad perk without being abusable on the highest level of play. This is the exact reason why open skill units are a bad idea. It is impossible to decide what level of proficiency to balance around. Give options elsewhere to spend APM and be the better player. Don't create units like the Marine again. Also, fun fact, I'm sure this is completely unintentional. It's just how the unit is designed visually, because they have the turret that stays on target. While recoils, blinks and knights need to turn to shoot, that causes this behavior and problem. The Scorpion. In the first beta they were S tier. But now with OP tier 3 units and the meta shift to just survive till tier 3 roulette, they just are a very weak choice. Low DPS and speed make them bad at run-bys, and in a straight up fight, crabs mitigate splash better. Also, if you fight in the most common shape, the line, crabs will win because of the higher DPS. I would suggest nerfing the HP to anything above 1200 and increasing the DPS to be somewhat competitive. After being nerfed twice, the Guardian Shield is down in the dumpster where it belongs. Now it could have been a really cool addition to the game, if it didn't have that worker shield. Being unable to kill the workers just makes the game so boring. I don't mind it cleaning up run-bys automatically, but at least the units you invest have to get their money's worth. It was intended for noobs to enjoy the game more carefree, but it just feels like wasted potential. Guardian Shield, if done properly, could be a unique strategy at the high level. Just give it 2 to 300 DPS against anything and remove the worker shield. Hell, if you wanted to, you could even add a base shield, increasing expansion HP from 20,000 to 30 or even 40,000. That would make way more sense. Which brings us to the entire part of the core units. Starting with the Hornet, which is, without any doubts, the best tier 1 AA unit by a lot. Not only does it boast the highest DPS of all of them, it is also the fastest, meaning you are far less likely to be out of position. It even allows for some micro, where you can choose the angle of attack. They also are by far the best option against shades. Not that they could beat them, but they take the same 2 shots to die, while doing more DPS in that time. They also don't have the stupid missiles, which only deal damage on arrival and feel clunky as hell. These, naturally, pair well with Wasps, but honestly, every deck should be using these. The only race that should even consider anything else are recalls, using their Hunter variety for uniformity, which is why those are in C tier. The Beetle can win a 1v1 versus a Falcon, which earns it the highest spot in D tier. And Blink Hunters have the highest threat range between all the races, which elevates them slightly above F tier. Missile bots are just too slow and clunky to use. Hunters lost their only advantage over the others being superior ground damage after Bowman beat the devs with them. But it's not the worst. That spot is earned by the Crossbow, due to its inability to deal with all tier 2 air units. Did you know that the best big unit is the Sniper? Well, funnily enough, it doesn't have attack at all, but if you redefine big as meaning can deal with splash units well, then the Sniper absolutely fits the bill. And not only that, it's also a supreme choice against any small units, or anti-big units, or slow units, or any ground unit that isn't big with high HP honestly. While for some of those matchups it needs some protection, it is still the best splash unit on the ground. Once you get here, you don't make anything else anymore. Pairs well with advanced blinks. The most brainless just A move unit, the Gargantua. The nerf to their move speed hit their ability to defend against air units hard, though these get soft countered by shades. Not that shades could kill them, nothing but anti-big can, but the shades will just kill everything else including workers, so you better pray you have enough Gargs to just crawl over the map and blow up the core before yours dies. I don't really have much else to say, they just have way more stats than is reasonable. Even beating core units for cost when you consider energy being worth 2.5 meta. What I can say is that protecting them from butterflies is nearly impossible. The Gargs are so fat that your Hornets can't even shoot over them. So if there's anything else going on, they just melt. Which brings us to the undisputed most OP unit of the entire beta, the Shade. These are, without a doubt, the best splash unit. Not only are they flying units, they are also way too fast and way too tanky. I honestly don't know what whoever designed these was thinking. There's also no counter to these in the game. Don't be fooled by false promises of predators or advanced mortars. Defending is always harder than attacking. One of these at an undefended worker line and the worker line does not exist any longer. So you will have to spread out your predators between 3, 4 or 5 worker lines. Good luck getting enough at each one so they can't just be overwhelmed by mass shades. Predator range and shade move speed work out to 2 shots fired before return fire. But shades only die in 3 hits. So while you will lose some, you will also kill the predators and all the workers. Worse even, if the workers are defended, you can just kill the core units, after which your own core units can just stroll in and murder all the AA. I'm honestly surprised they don't shoot up, but air-to-air units also don't counter them. All the air-to-air options are either too slow or lack the DPS to do anything about them. Hell, even in a straight up fight, since they are air units, they can just choose where they want to be, where any ground-based AA gets blocked by friendly units. So you can just shave off parts of the army on the edges while the AA is busy jumping around. Overshadowed, get it? By the Shade, the Mortar. The previous king of splash damage still sits at the top, high in S tier. Superior range, superior DPS, superior alpha strike. The only downside of being somewhat slow is easily offset by them beating most tier 3 splash units as well as all tier 2 splash units. The real power of this unit comes by target firing. Gunbots hiding behind Crusaders? Just hotkey your mortars and wildly click in the gunbot groups, which will still output more DPS onto them than the other splash options have DPS against small units. The only real downfall of the mortar is that they can't prevent the opponent from getting to tier 3. So if they have snipers, your mortars will die just like all the other tier 2 splash options. These obviously pair well with destroyers and hornets to cover their only weaknesses in battle. However, with the need for double tier 3 I would not recommend it. Just stay on 2 bases if you have to and get your tier 3 anti-pick. The Katbus got its HP buffed to the point it can now beat all AA units except Flak turret, Gargantua, Advanced Blink and Assaultbot. While the Shade is deleting half the AA units as viable, the Katbus deletes the other half. This double tier 3 air combo has no counter in the game currently. Yes, they can't defend themselves against Valkyries, but Hornets can take care of that. Running both Katbus and Shade means your entire foundry can be tailored to beating Valkyries. Airships aren't even a real issue for the Katbus as they just take too long to kill them. So by the time these die, they have cleared all the ground AoE units and your Wasp Hornet can just come rushing in. Flak turrets can prevent both from dealing damage directly, but since they don't move, you can just out-expand and wait for sudden death. Gargantuas win a straight up fight, but are easily distracted by ground units and a pain to micro. So in practice, Katbus can actually win that matchup with a little bit of help. So there are only 2 units that counter this at all. One of which dies to Shades, so it is not viable, and the advanced blinks won't kill the Shades fast enough to prevent annihilation. So while Katbus on their own can be countered, with some power of friendship, they can become absolute monsters. Also pair well with advanced destroyers to delete advanced blinks. Base Snipe Deluxe. The advanced blink is not here for its entire capabilities. While it might be the only unit that beats both Katbus and Shade in a straight up fight, it just can't prevent the devastating echo damage Shades will deal. No, these are up here because they are anti-pick, fast and hard to stop. So they can just roam around the map and snipe bases freely. With tier 2 now being a very contested slot, since you can only bring 1, the ability to deal with big units really comes in handy. The only thing I don't like about them is that they counter themselves, which is always weird. Paired with the advanced mortar, these could form a wombo combo. Just note that in the mirror match, the mortar actually beats the blink, and good luck with being in position versus air units. The advanced version is actually better than the normal version? What? The advanced destroyer climbs to the top because it single-handedly wins against the tier 3 blink and mortar wombo combo, as it can function as a budget sniper. The traditional pairing is the artillery, to keep them safe from those pesky core units. But you know what would be way better? If the artillery could fly and would be fast. So just pair them with the Shade, and the only thing that can counter you are air-to-air units, which your Hornets can take care of. The only reason why this is not superior to Shade Katbus is because the Sniper Advanced Mortar matchup is a lot trickier with slow ground units. Whereas the Katbus Shade can deal with the wombo combo just fine with some good micro and positioning. Boom later. The bomber got a significant buff to 1400 HP, taking it from being 2-shot by AoE to 3-shot, making it kind of OP now. There just is no way to stop these before they find their target, unless you have triple mortar set up for it specifically and you're fast on the target fire. Funnily enough, these are a precision tool and not the carpet bomb technique you may expect. They are just way too expensive for what they achieve if you throw them away willy-nilly. Throwing 4 of these into your opponent's main base to kill 20 workers is a splendid deal. But if you start sending more or you blow up expansion workers, the value quickly dwindles. Each bomber has to kill 2 workers just to break even. And with break even I mean you are losing energy and gaining meta over your opponent, which generally is a bad deal. So if you want to go full bust, so to say, you need to ensure your each bomber kills at least 3 workers, which means you spend 50 energy to destroy 54 and are massively gaining on the meta. They pair incredibly well with knights, as their bonus damage to destroyers removes the biggest threat to the knight on the battlefield. You need 3 per destroyer, so if you don't want to bleed out, make sure you hit multiple each time. As you can see in the clips, it is incredibly hard to deal with them. Maybe they should be reworked more into a sniper role and have the AoE removed. Having all your workers blown up without counterplay just isn't fun. Same for core units. So I propose to change them to not be AoE but deal 3000 damage or something to a single target, so you can snipe the tech unit that you really dislike. If they cost 125 to compensate, it's an even trade every time. So all you are winning is time, which could be fair. And of course, they wouldn't be able to hit bases. Wait, turrets are good? The turrets actually support this tier 3 meta perfectly, as they are the ultimate defense, whichever way you mirror with them. The ground turret one-shots core units and has decent DPS versus big, and the flak turret blows all air units out of the sky with a single shot. It even provides decent DPS against Katbus and can win a 1v2 against them. All you have to worry about are destroyers or butterflies. Defending flak turrets against butterflies is quite easy. Just place 2 to 3 hunters on hold position next to each turret. The destroyers are a bit of a bigger issue as they can almost match the range of the turret. So you will need a ranged core unit to exploit that 3 range gap. Worst case scenario, you can just stay on 2 bases until tier 3 finishes, as destroyers simply aren't fast enough to punish you. Time for a crusade! The Crusader and the not quite extinct yet Mammoth are good choices for 2 base pushes to prevent tier 3. If that is even possible. As with only 1 tier 2 slot being used, the likelihood of encountering destroyers dramatically decreases. Melee core units just can't afford to not have AoE against range. And even if ranged core units do have it, they can't punish you because the destroyer is so slow. So you can just tech to tier 3. While the Crusader performs better against core units in small numbers due to its higher DPS, the Mammoth may actually be preferable because of the tech path. Since you want these to be in front, they naturally pair well with all ranged core units. But you most likely want blinks, as those are the only options that can actually be aggressive quickly. So the destroyer got patched just before the end of the beta, much to my dismay. So I'm not quite sure which version I should rank here. The pre-nerf version, of course, is a meta-defining beast, but the post-nerf version is just kind of weak and slips into A tier. If big units in general would be less absurd to the point you can beat them with core units, which is supposed to be a neutral matchup, then I would rate the destroyer at C tier. It's too slow to cross the map and win before tier 3 comes out, and it isn't powerful enough to protect you while you tech to tier 3. Melee core units can't rely on it to defeat ranged core, and ranged core has better options. The Mortar destroyer meta died with Shades, as there is no unit in the Foundry path that can deal with Shades adequately. AA in this game is just a tragedy. Don't be fooled by its cute name. The Butterfly is a machine of destruction, only held back by the meta only allowing 1 tier 2 slot. They are kind of finicky to micro against AA as they are made of paper. But they do have the advantage of just flying over your own units so the AA can't reach them past their own big and bulky front line. They also have the benefit of being fast and requiring your opponent to leave AA units at each base. The best use of these is probably when you're running a double tier 3 foundry and you need an emergency anti-big tech option. Wasps and Hornets naturally pair well with these as I like to sting too. The only reason the Stinger is up this high is because I think you can punish people before they get to tier 3 with it. It being in the Starforge with Shade Katbus forces the opponent to go air, which means they won't be getting any AoE or the turret. And the Stinger only takes 23 seconds to cross the map, so there's a real chance to actually win the game before tier 3 comes out. The best AA unit in the game if Shades didn't exist. The Advancedbot beats all air units, including the previous air nemesis Katbus, except the one, which sadly trashes its usefulness greatly. There also is nothing to pair these with that could cover their weakness. The original tier 1 AA bully, the Falcon, while no longer winning straight up fights against tier 1 AA, still shines if supported correctly, providing a strong defensive option against ground on the Starforge. Since you give up all offensive potential when choosing this unit, make sure you run double tier 3. The advanced Wasp, I mean the Behemoth, is up here in B tier because if you can save up matter while getting to tier 3, you get so many of these that they can be overwhelming to deal with. Ah, the Stinger of the Foundry. The Swift Shocker makes it into C tier because it provides enough uniqueness over the Mortar that the other splash options lack. Its high movement speed allows for a more dynamic game. While Stingers are faster and better in small numbers, in all-out war the Swift Shocker reigns supreme as the AoE starts to stack up. Swift Shockers make for great one-base all-ins, so be extra wary if you see these in your opponent's deck. Apart from that, these actually allow for a different kind of playstyle to just Mortar turtling. What you need to achieve is to make the game very wide and take fights often. Not every fight needs to be a win, but you have to keep Mortar counts low or you will just die to critical mass. As long as Mortars don't sit in groups of 3, they struggle to snipe these away, which is what you have to rely on. Sadly, these lose pretty much all value once tier 3 happens. But if you wanted to get to double tier 3 Foundry, this can be a solid option to buy you the time. Sadly, big units will just crush you. Great DPS in the wrong place, unless their place is home. The advanced recoil suffers by being weak to exactly the same things as most core units, making it redundant. The only pairing that makes sense to use in is with Knights, if you need to tech Starforge but have to defend against Mammoth. Against any Foundry tech while playing Knights, I'd recommend to just go Foundry 2. Bombers are just that much fun. Now the Assaultbot is very strong, don't get me wrong. But everyone is already running AoE, so everyone has the counter to it already built in and available. So it just ends up being a Gunbot, blown up by the AoE before it gets to do anything. They only make it into C tier because they're effectively Marines, and I never wanna count those out. Maybe with some insane micro something can be done. They also have a wombo combo pairing with Gargantua, but only as long as your opponent wants to directly fight you and won't focus fire with splash damage. The Locust suffers from being a tier 3 unit that gets countered by tier 1. There are some niche use cases, like against Shade Katbus, turning that matchup into a micro battle, but apart from that they just kind of don't excel at anything. They are all-rounders and those just have no place in the game right now. The same is true for the Dragonfly, which have too low DPS to actually snipe things, while not having enough HP to shrug off AA. Also having a losing matchup in the same slot doesn't help. Since everyone is so desperate to get AA on the field to deal with the big bad tier 3 units, the Dragonfly just gets left behind as it provides nothing those down. The supreme air-to-air weapon, the Valkyrie narrowly misses D tier because the Airship exists. It is trying to fill a niche that almost doesn't exist, but is heavily contested. Against any Foundry tech, these are useless, and against half the Starforge tech, they aren't any more useful, leaving them as a hyper-specialized unit that kind of fails at doing its job. Half the threats it needs to deal with, it better already be in position for, because it's too slow to get anywhere. The other half it's not even fast at killing, taking 13 seconds to kill a Katbus. So you will need a lot of these, if you actually want to protect anything. And since its ground attack is laughable, it also has no offensive potential. Which brings me to the aggressive Valkyrie. The Airship fails at its only task. With not enough range or DPS to actually keep the skies clear, a low D tier is the best it's gonna get. As a sole air-to-air unit I would expect more from it than a 26-second time to kill a Katbus. Also straight up losing to all tier 3 air units that actually shoot back is not a great showing. The only good thing about it is that it is almost, yes almost, capable of keeping up with the threats it wants to kill. Something that the Valkyrie lacks. At least the Heavy Hunter doesn't get superseded by a better version of tier 3, so it's unique. Uniquely shit at its job, but nonetheless unique. While I expect tier 1 AA units to deal with tier 2 air, I would expect the tier 2 AA unit to actually deal with all the tier 3 air units. Sadly the Heavy Hunter deals with neither the Shade nor the Katbus. While it is faster and has more range than the Katbus, it takes 3 business days to kill it, so the bus can just hide in dead airspace. I also have no idea how many you would need to beat Shades in a fight, as Splash just tears these apart. If all you're looking for is a tier 1 AA unit because you forgot to bring yours, these are a fine choice. Not better than Hornets, but A tier. Competition in tier 3 is fierce, and the advanced Mortar just can't compete with the other options. If you are a tier 3 unit that shoots air, I expect you to deal with all the air units, not just some of them, as air units are naturally superior due to higher maneuverability. Apart from that, this adds nothing over the regular Mortar. Well, 600 HP, but that's not worth taking up for. The only use I can see is if you need a tier 2 unit for your tier 3 setup, but still want to have Mortars. Where it is part of a wombo combo, the weakness to Sniper and Advanced Destroyer, which are both S tier, is just too much of a downside for me. Unlike the regular Mortar, the advanced one will have to contend with those right away. Artillery, Blaster, Heavy Ballista, Shocker and Recoil Shocker all suffer from the same issue. There just is a better option in the same slot and they provide nothing unique that makes them worthwhile. If you want to be a splash unit, you just have to be better than the Mortar or provide something the Mortar can't. The artillery is in the Starforge instead of the Foundry, but gets superseded by the Shade there. The heavy Ballista is a menace, but gets superseded by the Gargantua. That, while slightly slower at killing small units, offers other benefits like shooting air or big units. Overall, the big tech cannot save this one from being outcompeted. The recoil ability is not useful enough if your positioning is good, as all you need a tier 2 unit to do is get you to tier 3. The overall low DPS also does not help. The only benefit of the Shocker over the Mortar is not having to siege before firing, which makes it marginally faster, but does not outweigh the lack of range and DPS whatsoever. Which brings me to the last AA disappointment, the Predator. A unit with only one purpose, beating Shades. Now while the same still applies, and I'd expect a tier 3 AA unit to deal with tier 3 air, it can't even deal with the one unit it was designed for. These project no threat onto the map whatsoever, so your opponent can just take bases, and if you try to do the same, you won't be able to defend them. The splash damage of 2 or 3 Predators can be mitigated by splitting on entry, and you won't be able to have more as you need to defend 3, 4 or 5 bases from Shades flying by. Literally just get Flak turrets instead. Or leave Valkyries behind. At least those won't die to a random Wasp run by. The Bulwark is another all-round unit that's just bad at everything. At least they beat airships in a straight up fight, which is quite sad for the airship. If King Crab wasn't big, it may actually be decent. It would take twice the damage from splash damage, but not getting one-shot by destroyers seems like a worthwhile trade-off. Ballistas are just slow swift shockers, which are already not that great, F tier. I considered placing the Mighty Kraken higher in the list, just for some silly deck with turrets that can hold on long enough to get there, but I don't know how that would look like and no one managed to get one against me, so F tier. So bad it doesn't exist anymore, the Raider, last in F tier.